Hi everyone, welcome to the talk show of William English Institute at SLIT. Today my guest is Mr. Pankaj Sampath. He is the area director of Taj Asia Limited and Taj Safari Limited for Sri Lanka, Maldives and Malaysia, and he is the general manager of Taj Samudra Colombo. Today we are going to talk about Taj presence in Sri Lanka and how it evolved in Sri Lanka. Also please note that this recording is at Taj Samudra itself. Please bear with us for the background noise as we are doing at the hotel operation itself. Mr. Pankaj Sampath's story is very impressive. It's 27 years in Taj. We love to hear his story from his own words. Mr. Sampath, how is your story began? How did you start? When did you start your big story?
So actually I joined the Taj when I was just 19 years old. This was way back in 1993. And usually at 19 years people don't think of working, but fortunately I got placed with the Taj in 1993 as a hotel operations management trainee. And subsequently...
Which part of India?
So I was working with the Taj Mahal Palace and Towers, Mumbai, which is the flagship hotel of the group.
Okay.
Which of course opened in 1903, and I had the fortune of working in that hotel for 14 years. So of my 27 years, I worked 14 years in food and beverage, predominantly in Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai.
It's not merely 27, it's close upon 28 years.
Yeah, it's almost 28. Yeah, it's almost 28. So 14 years with Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai, GM of Taj President for 7 years in Mumbai again. I worked at the Taj Land's End in Mumbai again for a year. And I had the fortune of opening the Taj Santa Cruz in Mumbai, which is the new hotel, that newest baby that we have in India. So that was something that I did recently, and I just moved from there to Colombo, and that was the first overseas posting that I got.
Okay.
Or a first outside the city posting of Mumbai that I got, and that happened to be Sri Lanka. So
it's not only Sri Lanka, you're looking after Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mauritius and Malaysia.
Correct. In fact, I'm looking after Sri Lanka, Maldives and Malaysia. I'm also looking after Taj Safaris in India, which is we have 4 Taj Safaris under the brand Taj Safaris, and it's a very wide kind of a portfolio to kind of look after, and extremely fortunate that the company thought of me to kind of lead this portfolio. And this
based in Colombo.
This is based out of Taj Samudra in Colombo. So been here since 2 years now, and extremely happy with my 2 years here.
So now you're posting in Colombo. We'll say Colombo. In Sri Lanka we have 3 properties. Maldives, how many properties?
So in Sri Lanka we have 3 properties: Taj Samudra, Taj Bentota, and we oversee the Airport Garden Hotel. In Maldives we have 2 properties: Taj Exotica Maldives and Taj Coral Reef. And in Malaysia we have the Vivanta Rebak Island Langkawi property that we have with us.
Okay.
So 6 properties overseas.
So it's a quite big portfolio.
It's quite a big portfolio and quite a challenging portfolio, especially in the current circumstances, because these are predominantly very high tourist destinations, and with the world coming to a stop with the pandemic, this portfolio is quite challenging.
Out of these 3 countries, which one you like most? Is it Sri Lanka, Maldives or Malaysia? In terms of the location. Not
so in terms of location, of course, Maldives, I would be very honest about it. But I've explored Sri Lanka as well, and I think it's great, because unless you actually explore Sri Lanka, you don't realize the value, because it's not what you see in Colombo, but what you see outside Colombo. And I think from what I've seen in my 2 years in this country, of the 5 or 6 places that I've visited, I think Sri Lanka is gorgeous. So while Maldives is just one single resort with a beach, very beautiful waters, I think Sri Lanka offers much more in terms of varied experience. So it's got mountains, it's got beaches. Yeah, it's very diverse. In fact, it's got rainforests, it's got trekking opportunities. There's a whole lot to do in Sri Lanka as well. And of course, you've got wildlife here, which is something which interests me. So I've been to both Yala as well as Wilpattu. I think both are fabulous in terms of wildlife experience.
So other than, good point you came now, other than your hoteliering experience, now you handle the trails and wildlife safaris also. How does that impact your day-to-day work?
So I think predominantly, I think we all business managers at the end of the day, our job is to kind of focus on our business. And I think what we do is we look at opportunities in terms of how we can grow. So whether it is the wildlife business, or whether it's the hoteliering business that we do, whether it's management contracts, our ambition is constantly to kind of keep looking at newer opportunities. and that's how you expand your footprint. And I think development is something that comes common with any business that you work with. So I think as business managers, of course, you have to look at other things as well in terms of your development of people, your upkeep and maintenance of your properties, your top line growth, your flow through in terms of EBITDA. I think all that is also important, but I'm saying we are predominantly business managers. So I think what we focus on is how do we grow the business? How do we ensure that we keep the same margins or improve our margins? And how do we build a team which can be spread out? In fact, we develop skills in associates of ours that we can, when we expand, we need people to kind of move into those properties as well. So I think all this goes hand in hand. I don't think we can kind of isolate one from the other, and we have to look at this very holistically and inclusively. So I think that's what the role of a business manager really is, and that's what my role is.
You are trying to say you can integrate both hoteliering and trading and
Of course. So hoteliering and wildlife business. So of course, hoteliering, wildlife business is also about giving great experiences to our guests. And I think you said it absolutely right. You know, it's about how do you give that wonderful experience to the guest. And I think where that comes from is from people. So I always keep telling my colleagues that we are not in the business of selling rooms or in the business of selling food and beverage. We are in the business of selling experiences.
Or in other terms, selling dreams of people.
Selling dreams, and of course, and we are in the people business. We are not in a product or a commodity business. We are in the people business. So what do we do with people? So I think that's very important in our. So whether we work with wildlife, whether we work with resorts, whether we work with city hotels, we are going to deal with a large number of human beings. And I think what we do is we proactively understand the requirements and try and exceed their requirements and give them that experience that they can go back and say, it was a great experience to stay in this property.
So now, again, going back to your career, it's very interesting to see you have learned nutrition in your early days. So just talk about.
So nutrition was, of course, one of those subjects which so if you
few people select this.
So nutrition was part of everybody's syllabus. It was not something which I chose specifically, but I think nutrition was part of our syllabus, and I think it gives you a great insight in terms of how to prepare food, and I think and what is the right thing to do with food. And I think simple things I remember so well. I mean, why do you cook? Why don't you cover a green vegetable with a lid, for example? Because there is a process called phytophytonization. I think something which I remember so well. I was taught this some 30 years back, but you understand how food gets when you treat food in a correct manner, you get the correct color, the correct texture, etc. And I think that was one. The second, of course, being the calories and the nutrient value, which is important. And I think when we today look at it, it's so important because the world is so focused in terms of what they want. And especially with the new dietary requirements, guests who want vegan food, etc. I think if you've studied this subject, it kind of makes your job much easier in terms of planning your menus. And I think we cannot isolate ourselves from planning menus as well. I think.
Vegan food, gluten
free. There are at least 30 or 40 kind of different allergies that are there in the world, and I think you need to start looking. Nut allergy, for example, you are allergic to nuts, etc. I think you need to plan for all of these because I think the world is diverse as well, and we get guests from all over the world today with connectivity improving. We have to start worrying about every single aspect of our guest requirement. I think dietary requirement is one of them.
So, in nutshell, of 8 years of experience, just let us know about how this happened. How many properties altogether?
So, as I mentioned to you earlier, I've worked with predominantly 4 hotels in Mumbai, and Taj Mahal Palace Mumbai, Taj President, Taj Lands End, Taj Santa Cruz, and this is my 5th property, Taj Samudra. And predominantly of my 28 years, I've spent close to 26 in Mumbai, 2 years in Sri Lanka, and in different roles. So I started off as a trainee supervisor, and this was more like an entry-level position at the management.
Which department?
In food and beverage. In food and beverage. So my preference was, I had a choice. In fact, when I passed out, I was given the management training program at the Oberoi's, the OCLD, and I was also offered the HMT program, which was one level lower, but in food and beverage, and I chose food and beverage. And while I did pretty well in both the subjects, I thought my calling was towards F&B. So I joined F&B, and this was in 1993, and I was chosen to be part of a team that opened a private business club called the Chambers, which is an exclusive business club only for CEOs of companies. And that really taught me how to be perfect, in the sense that we were dealing with CEOs. You couldn't have something which was either a 19 or a 21. You just needed a 20 on 20. And I think that completely changed the way I grew up as a professional. And I think the art of looking at things and the art of kind of being perfect kind of came from the Chambers. And you can't expect to go wrong with the CEOs of various
Correct.
companies. They're all
Perfectionists.
they're all perfectionists. So and therefore I think that carried through with me in my career with Taj. And subsequently, I moved on from the Chambers to looking after restaurants. I looked after a lovely resto bar called the Apollo Bar, and we had this wonderful cuisine called Ménage à Trois by Anthony Frank Worrell then. And then subsequently, I moved back to the Chambers again, and from Chambers, I grew to becoming the Assistant Director of Food and Beverage, looking after banquets at Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai. And I went on to becoming the Director of Food and Beverage at the Land's End, and subsequently came back to Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai as the EM Food and Beverage. And I got promoted as the GM of Taj President. I was the longest serving GM for that hotel, which is our flagship Vivanta property in Mumbai. And then I was chosen to open the Taj Santa Cruz in Mumbai, which is a beautiful property that we opened next to the airport. And it's a success story by itself. Lot of good stories about that property, in the sense that we actually became PBT positive in 3 years, despite taking a loan of 200 plus crores in that hotel, and after paying the interest and the capital repayment, we were PBT positive, which normally takes a good 6 to 7 years for a hotel to do. And I think that success story kind of got me elevated to becoming the area director for Taj, based in Sri Lanka, and overseeing this.
Okay, so now in your career, when was your paradigm shift to the administration, to becoming a GM, after about completing 20
So when
years, 15 years, or?
So this was in the year 2007 when I got promoted. So that was my 14th year from joining in Taj. And this came to me like a surprise. I was not expecting to move that quickly to becoming a general manager at that point in time. So when I became a general manager at that point in time, usually what happens is you move into a resident manager's role, and then from there you become a GM. But I got moved into the GM's role because they thought I was ready for it at that point in time. And it took me maybe a good 6 months to kind of realize what a role of a general manager is. So it's not something that I prepared for. It's something that I learned on the job. And I had a predecessor, Mr. Khosla, who kind of really gave me a fantastic handover in terms of understanding the property, the owners, the way we do business, and the segmentation in terms of the market that we work with. So he had prepared a very strong dossier of a handover for me, which I could go through at any point in time. And of course, being a food and beverage professional, I had to start learning about accommodation as well. I had to learn about engineering, which I didn't know anything about, for that matter. And I realized by the 6th month that I had to start worrying about the hotel for the future, and that's where the paradigm shift happened. So when we planned our budgets and our capexes for the hotel, I always started thinking about the next 5 years or 10 years, what I need to do as a GM of the hotel to kind of make an impact which somebody else can benefit from in the years to come. So whether it's investment in terms of energy saving equipment, or whether it's in terms of renovations or in terms of refurbishment, what we do kind of sets the hotel for the next 10 years. And I think this realization came in maybe 6 months down the line, when I actually started planning for the future.
So it's very impressive success story. Whoever who wants to look for a role model, Pankaj Sampath is a real role model. After hearing his success story, I would like to hear his hobbies. What do you do at your leisure time? So that's kind of very impressive for all of us to know, because it's looking at your CV, looking at your career, it's so impressive. I'm sure you'll have time for you.
So, Karsun, my hobby also comes from the fact that I
actually started working at the Chambers, and Chambers was a private business club only for members. And this was being a business club, I think one requirement was your knowledge about your members. And I think in my initial days of training at the Chambers, I had a boss who actually asked me and said, what's the cover of Business India? And I looked at him and said, I don't know. And then he said, what's the headlines in the Economic Times? And I said, I don't know. And he said, what do you read? I said, I read the sports section of Times of India, and that's all I read. And he said, but if you are working at the Chambers, I think it's important that you start reading about what's happening in the world of business. And that started off a journey where I started looking at reading articles about our members, what's happening with companies,
The corporate world.
the corporate world. So
Corporate
understanding balance sheets, and because every membership membership request that we got at the club, we had to process a set of documents and send it to a board which was there, which used to approve the membership, and that included a lot of financials of the company. And unless you know about it, you couldn't make that board presentation. So I think that's something that I started doing at that point in time, and it became a hobby in the sense that even today, in my free time, I read about other companies as well. I invest in companies as well, and I think this hobby, I think, is going to stay with me as long as I live. Of recent times, what I've also started doing is enjoying wildlife safaris as it's part of my portfolio. In fact, the year before that, just before I moved in, I actually went for 4 safaris. I've done 2 safaris in Sri Lanka so far. And last but not the least is I love going to the gym whenever I get the time, maybe 3 or 4 times a week, putting on my headphones and just switching off to the world. I think that's something which I do for myself, and it's important to kind of it brings back the focus. I think it's extremely important if you do some of these things for yourself, you can get back and start focusing on your work.
Because it is very interesting to have this. A lot of people do not go into details about corporate world. They just skim the glance. But you are going into details because why? I should ask why.
So I think one thing, when you worked in a club like the Chambers, and I think when you were dealing with CEOs of the companies, I think it was important that you know what they do. And I think how is the company faring, and especially when you start getting.
You mean to say their biography or the corporate profile?
So of course the biography as well. So we had to know who the Chambers member was, what his family tree was, which part of the country that he came in from, because we had members who were based out of Calcutta, Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, and of course the other parts of India as well, and some from the international world. But some of these companies or some of these members had a very strong family tree, and we had to know everything about them and the family tree, who was related to whom. So that was one part of it.
Social network.
Yeah, social network, etc. And of course there were members of the same family who were also part of the Chambers. And I think if you knew well about them, then your conversation with your member could be also about his family, his child who was also a member, etc. And I think that added more value to the conversation. The other aspect, of course, as I mentioned to you, is understanding what the company does, what are the financials of the company, and you had board meetings of companies happening with you all the time. So I think that level of knowledge was important, to have a degree of conversation which was interesting for the member as well. I think you couldn't have a normal mundane conversation as to how was your day, how was your food, etc.
Yeah.
You needed to speak about businesses, you need to speak about what's happening in the world, etc. And I think
depth and breadth of the
absolutely.
business.
So depth and breadth is what is important, because then only you can have an intelligent conversation with the CEO of a company.
Of course, it's very interesting because very seldom do you find people who go into these details. Especially in the corporate world, they have different other things, because this is what we call going into details and passion for hospitality.
Absolutely. So Chambers was all about detailing, and in fact, we knew every single thing about our members. So, in fact, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure it even happens today, if a member was walking past from the entrance to the lounge where he was about to sit, the server would know what the order was, and before he actually sat down, the drink was actually served to the guest right before he sat down. And I think that was amazing. Means for a guest, it's brilliant, because and especially in front of your guests as a member, if somebody just comes and places a drink without asking your preference, I think that's a great feeling in front of your guests, and I think that's what Chambers brought about. It brought about small things, but these small things were extremely important, and I think in particular, and knowledge, and of course knowledge. We knew every single thing about where the furnishings were from, where the painting was from, who had made the painting, what was the texture, etc., etc. So every single detail of the club we knew, because if any member asked us a question, we always had to have an answer for that.
That is because of your hobby.
Hobby, and also the fact that Chambers was quite demanding. In fact, it expected you to answer those questions, and I think I appreciate that. I went through that training at some point in time before I really grew on to becoming a manager, because actually that helped me to a great extent. And that eye for detail is something which I think stays with me even today. So it's about small things. It's about small things do matter.
Yeah. This is very interesting. In hospitality industry, going into details will make the difference. So that's what Mr. Sampath is talking about. It's super and perfect.
Thank you.
Sri Lanka, it's a treasure of islands. So you can see a nice pictures behind us. But Sri Lankan hospitality industry way back in 1980s were booming. Then we had different issues, we had different problems, but Sri Lankan tourism industry got all at one point. Taj Samudra was one of the first hotel to come into Sri Lanka in 1984. It was a flagship hotel of Taj Group in Sri Lanka way back, and now it gives you the better impression to the tourism industry. And the landscape, also the building, how it located, the service, food and everything, it's totally a different experience. So he's the best person to talk about Taj experience in Sri Lanka from 1984. Then 1998 we had Taj Exotica, thereafter other properties. So Sampath, you can talk about it.
So in case of Taj, we came to Sri Lanka when the president at that point in time invited
President Jayawardena.
President Jayawardena invited Mr. J.R.D. Tata to come and visit Sri Lanka, and he also requested him to make a beautiful hotel like the Taj Mahal Palace in Taj Mahal Palace, Mumbai. And apparently, the then managing director of the company, Mr. Kerkar, came with a team of people to scout for opportunities here in Sri Lanka. 2 pieces of land were apparently shown to them, and we chose this one. And in 1984, we had this Taj Samudra, a beautiful 300-room hotel with suites and the lovely Tata Suite where you are in right now, and all the facilities created at that point in time. Of course, subsequently post that, there was a long civil war in the country, and this hotel had its own challenges because there was no tourism on account of the war, etc. However, when it got over in 2010, Taj went ahead and spent close to $26 million in refurbishing the entire property with upgrading the 4th floor, the 6th floor, the 7th floor, adding the Taj Club, adding Yumi, the Japanese restaurant which is so famous in Colombo now, the refurbishing Golden Dragon.
That's the only Chinese Japanese restaurant in a hotel. No?
Yes, that is right. In fact, it is got a fantastic fan following.
Yeah.
When we opened that restaurant, in fact, there's a story behind that. We thought we were too early in time to kind of open a Japanese restaurant in Colombo. But the success has been overwhelming, and I think we did a good thing by opening Yumi in Taj Samudra. And of course, we refurbished Golden Dragon, we refurbished Ports of Call, Lattice, Lobby, and a whole lot of work went into Navratna, of course, as well. So a whole lot of work has gone in kind of what we built in 1984 to what we took up in 2010, and what it is in its current avatar. I think it's a completely different property, and of course, because of all the work that we've done, we've kind of enjoyed leadership in terms of our FPAR, etc. So I think a very, very important investment that we made at that point in time. Subsequently, also Taj went ahead and tied up with the Hydramani family here in Sri Lanka, and we made Taj Bentota, which is another beautiful hotel, very, very strategically located between 2 beaches, and it's a beautiful 160-room property that we've created there, doing extremely well even in tough times. Touchwood, things have improved there now as
1998, SAARC Summit,
yes, that's right,
was held in.
That's right. Absolutely right. You've got your history absolutely correct, Kasun. I think you know much more than what I know about all these small things. But I think yes, that's what happened, and of course then we took over the management contract of the airport garden, which is now the Vivanta Airport Garden. It's got 2 blocks. We had earlier only 1 block. Now there's another block added over, and all 3 properties by themselves are doing extremely well. And of course, RHCL, which is my parent company, and Taj, we are always looking at expanding our footprint whenever and wherever there is a management contract opportunity in any part of Sri Lanka. We would be interested, whether it's Kandy, whether it's Galle, and of course, if there's a investment to be made at some point in time, and if it's worth making the investment, I'm sure the ExCom and the senior leadership in the company would definitely think about it. So I think Sri Lanka for us is always an opportunity, and we'll always keep looking at new opportunities going forward as well.
Not only that, now this hotel is very famous for delegation, state visits. Why don't you talk about that?
So this hotel, being the first luxury hotel which was built in 1984 with this kind of a size, 300 rooms, which was not heard of at that point in time. Of course, now that we have many hotels in Sri Lanka, was the first of its kind. And eventually what happened was it had the privilege of hosting all important delegations, heads of state, prime ministers of countries, including Dr. Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Modi. Recently, we had Mr. Mike Pompeo, who stayed with us as well. And of course, all the external affairs ministers who keep coming here. All important maritime conferences that happen between 3-4 nations, they are hosted at this hotel. So we've been fortunate that because we came in really early, we had the honor of hosting some of these heads of state. And of course, the whole team is kind of tuned to looking after them, etc. So I think
you are forgetting one thing. You are forgetting all the cricket teams.
Of course,
this is a famous hotel.
So I did not mention I love cricket. Yeah. That's something which it's like religion for everyone. I'm sure it is for you as well. And the cricket teams, I think all the cricket teams over the last so many years have stayed with us. Recently, we had the Bangladesh cricket team last year that stayed with us. Of course, the Sri Lankan cricket team, and of course the Indian team. And of course, there are important competitions coming up in the coming months, and we are looking forward to receiving.
And airline crews.
And of course, airline crews. So airline crews, yes, we had many airline crews at the hotel. Of course, now that we have hotels closer to the airport, some have shifted there, but we still, till recent time, had a fairly decent number of airline crews that stayed with us. So I think this hotel is got a very good mix of
the corporate mix, I would say.
Yeah, so it's corporate, it's airlines, it's got tourists as well, and I think it's got a right blend of people who come and stay with us.
Honestly, Dan Samudra, your service is absolutely perfect. I mean, you go into details, but comparatively, everything what you do, your service is the best service, I would say. I grade this. It's not just for the talk show. I'm just saying from my honest feeling.
So, Kasun, I think it also goes with the history of this hotel. It's been here for almost more than 3.5 decades now. And I think what we were able to inculcate here is the sentiment of Tajness. And Tajness is about that you can actually experience a Taj hotel by keeping your eyes closed. And I think while we say this, it's not something that we say to promote our service. I think it's the way we've trained our associates at the hotel to kind of go and deliver beyond guest expectations proactively. I think that's what sets us apart, and I think we are blessed, and I'm blessed as well to be part of this company where what we've done is we've not just only created talent for our own hotel, we've created talent for our competitors as well. We are happy that somebody's carrying a Taj flag. Trend-setting. We are happy that they would carry the flag and they would kind of go in, and especially for countries where, or even for India for that matter, even for Sri Lanka for that matter, where we had newer hotels coming in, newer chains coming in. Taj being there from 1903 in India and from 1984 here in Sri Lanka, we were able to spread that talent into, and that culture of service, that culture of, we keep saying Atithi Dev Bhava, means guest is God. And I think that spread of culture is extremely important because that trend setting for other hotels also kind of continued from where we started off. So I think that's important.
So importantly, you need to talk about the employment and how do you look after your staff members here, because this is very significant in Colombo. Whoever who comes here been looked after very well. They sent to India for management training or what. numerous training programs, right? So most of them, they really like this working culture, right?
So Kasun, at least I'm happy that you know what we do actually. So, as you rightly said, we do look after our associates in a very holistic manner. So, irrespective whether you are in Sri Lanka, whether you are in India, when we have any centralized programs, I think everybody kind of gets nominated for that. We have management trainees from Sri Lanka who've been part of the training program in India and have come back with the knowledge and expertise that they've got back in India. More importantly, I think what we do is when we do roll out our training programs and our SOPs, etc., we have a uniform disbursement of that across all our properties. So I think when we say uniform, it's not that we do something specifically for Sri Lanka and we do something specifically for India and we do something specifically for UK. So if it's like the hygiene process, for example, with this pandemic which is currently there, we have a very uniform process. And of course, what we do is we say that over and beyond this, if there is a rule of the land, you should follow that. So, but the basics remain the same for everybody. And that talks about, and therefore I keep saying Tajness is about irrespective of whichever hotel you enter, in whichever part of the world, the moment you enter the hotel, you should know it's a Taj hotel. So it's the aroma in the hotel, it's the service in the hotel, it's about the way people greet you, etc. And I think, and that's the unique part about a Taj hotel. And I think,
and the classicness.
Yeah, of course.
I'll tell you one classic example. So you all are the only hotel in Colombo that when you're serving, a small example, when you serve tea, you need to have hot water coming into.
Correct.
Hot water and a glass of water.
Correct.
Both come
Correct.
together.
Correct.
So you all are the only hotel which serves tea.
So I'm glad that you've observed all these finer things, Kasun. I think that's what makes us different. And I think, and I keep talking to my colleagues as well, I think we have that very, very large legacy of knowledge that we have. And that knowledge, if you're able to continue it, and especially the good things, you should be able to continue. You should keep on repeating it. You should keep on repeating it. And if it becomes repetitive in nature, you get consistency. And of course, there will be things that will change, and the world is constantly changing. So you will change, but the good things don't change.
Classic won't change.
Classic won't change.
Yeah.
And of course, the fine art of expecting something from a guest and delivering it proactively is something which makes us unique and different.
Thank you. William English Institute at Slit. It's a different institute. We create events, we create hospitality management, also we have patisserie and commercial cookery. Now we have Mr. Pankaj Sampath. I like to hear his impression towards the institute.
Kasun, one of the first things when I came to Sri Lanka, I always thought what was the level of education for hospitality in the country. And I think when I visited the institute, I was pleasantly surprised that there was an institute of this stature which was available in Sri Lanka, which could offer such a varied program, just not varied programs, but I think it offered management, it offered culinary programs, and it offered other aspects of learning which I did not think would be part of the institute initially. But through my experience of visiting the institute, I actually saw a whole lot of different programs being offered by SLIIT, and I thought it was fabulous to kind of see that this was actually factored in and somebody thought about this so meticulously while kind of creating these programs. And I think it's definitely going to help develop students with a wider range of knowledge. It's not just only restricted to hospitality, it's also kind of develops them into becoming good chefs in the future. And from what I heard and what I saw over my last visit there, and the plans that you have for the institute going forward, I think you've got most of the things right. You've ticked most of the boxes, and it augurs well for the industry. It augurs well for us as well, because we will get some great students coming out from there. And I think you're on the right track, and this institute is on the right track. And I do hope that you continue doing the good work, and I'm sure that there's a partnership that you have with a university in Australia, and with this partnership also what brings on the table is the state of the art knowledge, state of the art skills, and what's happening in the world real time. So I think you've got it just right, and I think this institute is really going to do well in times to come, because you are preparing the students for the future, which is more important.
Thank you. It's honor to hear from you.
Thank you.
Incredible India. India is a country which has different cultures, different languages. All in all, it's world within world. Now, our gentleman, Mr. Pankaj Sampath, is from India. I'd like to hear from you as to why you select hospitality per se. What is your interest?
So, Kasun, there are actually two reasons why I actually chose the hospitality industry. So, I come from a family of engineers. My grandfather was an engineer, my father is an engineer, my twin brother is an engineer. All three of them were engineers. And when we both passed out, me and my twin brother passed out, and when we got our marks, there was a very funny thing that happened in our marks. We got our marks in a sequential order.
Okay.
And physics, chemistry and maths were the subject to be looked at. And when we applied at universities in India, there was a certain cutoff. And if you didn't qualify for the cutoff, then they were expecting you to pay a capitation fee. And since both my brother and I didn't make that cutoff at that point in time, I told my father that you can pay the capitation fee for him, because I don't want to do anything with the capitation fee. I'll do whatever I can on merit. So that was one reason. And of course, the second reason was I had an uncle who was working with the Taj Group of Hotels at that point in time. So that was a source of inspiration. So I thought I was getting to join the hospitality program on merit, and keeping these two reasons in mind, I joined the hospitality industry, and I'm happy that I made this choice, and given a second chance, I would not change my decision ever.
So now, a country like India, what is the cultural taboo who was coming to tourism?
So in 1993, there were, predominantly when people passed out, I was pursuing science, and predominantly when people passed out, they were either expected to join medicine or engineering.
Same like us.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. Okay, so that was the expectation, and I was the odd man out to kind of decide to do a hotel management program at that point in time, and I did it with my own will, and I thought that was the right way to do it. In fact, Kasun, you'd be surprised, 2 months down the line after I joined the hospitality program, the institute called me on merit, and they gave me an admission on merit. And that there was a dilemma at that point in time whether I should leave hotel management and join engineering.
Okay.
And the same college as my brother, and I decided to continue with hotel management, and I don't regret that decision ever. So I think that was a good decision I made that point in time, and I'm so glad that I made that decision.
So in terms of the industry is not very rosy as you see. It's luxurious. You see so much of fancy stuff, but it's not back in the day. Back in the day, and back of the house, it's not like that. So, how did you come across that challenge?
So I'll tell you what, hospitality industry is all about passion. It's all about what you feel from within, and of course, I too shared that impression that the industry is extremely glamorous, and that it's a very rosy picture, but that's what you see it from outside. But fortunately, because I'd done my industrial training at the Taj at that point in time, so I knew what the reality was when I took up a job with the Taj, and I'm fortunate to kind of say that I've had the honor of looking after heads of state, prince and princesses, film stars, cricketers, etc., which I don't think I would ever be able to do somewhere else.
This is the only industry that you meet so much of.
Absolutely right. And the second thing about our industry is that we deal with human beings and people. So each day of your life, you're doing something different, because human beings are not the same. So every day you interact with different people, you get to do something different as well. Now, if you were in engineering where you were into production, or if you were into software, you would be doing something very, very monotonous in terms of your job. But our industry is always different. You're always doing something different. You're meeting a guest with a different preference. There's a specific requirement for somebody's birthday party. There's a celebration happening. He wants it to be done very differently. And I think that's what makes a life extremely interesting. I think meeting different people, and of course, meeting up to their expectations every single time, or exceeding their expectations every single time, in a way creates a challenge that keeps you going on every single day. And I think that's what makes me happy about being a part of this industry.
So at the initial stages, you didn't feel leaving the industry. Now you had the option of going to engineering and things like that.
No, so I never thought back. I never thought back. In fact, I really enjoyed what I did. In fact, I was so happy with what I was doing right at the institute where I studied for 3 years, doing my industrial training program, and even today for that matter. In fact, in my 27 years, I have been offered jobs in companies which are not related to hospitality as well, and I always didn't have a second thought to that. I knew I was going to. I'm made for this industry, and I'm going to be with them going forward. So no questions asked on this.
Quite interesting. I'm coming from India, and from an Indian is talking about this magnitude of industry. It's fabulous.
No, hospitality industry is amazing, but I think whoever joins the industry should come with that real passion to kind of. We are going to deal with guests. We are going to deal with human beings with very, very different preferences. If you mentally tune yourself, and if you say that, and I think the biggest satisfaction that you get is at the end of the experience that the guest gets, and the smile that you bring to his face, the wonderful comments that he leaves behind for you. I think that's instant gratification for you. I don't think any industry can give you instant gratification like this. If a customer or I won't say customer, but if a guest comes to you and just puts his arm around you and says, we had a fabulous vacation, Pankaj. Thanks to you and the team at the hotel, we had a wonderful time. My child had a wonderful time. We are going to come back. We are going to recommend your hotel to somebody else. I think this is brilliant. I think for me, it makes my day, and this is instant gratification for me. So I think the joy which you have when you see the joy on your guest's face every time they leave your hotel, I think it's brilliant. I think nowhere else you can get this.
Sorry, I forgot to ask you one thing. Which part of India are you from?
So actually, I'm from Mumbai, but my native place is Gujarat. But I'm born and brought up in Mumbai, so I keep saying that I'm from Mumbai because I grew up completely in Mumbai, and
where the Bollywood is.
Where the Bollywood is, and of course,
yeah.
That's the financial capital of India. So I think Mumbai gives a flavor of multiple things. It's also about corporates. It's also about film stars. It's also about big fat weddings, etc., etc. There's multiple things to do in Bombay.
We have come to the end of the talk show today. We had Mr. Pankaj Sampath from Taj Samudra, also from Taj Group, and he has a very special message to you. We'll listen to him.
So the message, Kasun, I would like to give, especially the students and the fraternity, is that this pandemic that we are going through currently, it's of course challenging, no doubt. And but it's not the end of the world. I think it's only a matter of time, and maybe in the next 3 to 6 months we should see a revival in our industry, and it'll augur well for not just the industry as well, but also for the students in terms of new opportunities, etc. So I think the message is very loud and clear. I think everybody needs to be resilient, and for the moment everybody needs to be safe. And I think we will see good times in our industry very, very soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we all have to be positive. We all have to stay calm and stay blessed. The industry will be very positive. Thank you very much for watching our talk show. Please do not forget to subscribe us. Please subscribe William English Institute at Slit YouTube channel and the bell mark. Thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you another day.